till we have the.
Sure, you go straight home.
No, I've got that other meeting.
Oh, that's right.
He said not to take her to it. Do not pick me up, I'm not going.
That's
There we go, speakers.
Okay, start in 1 minute. There's the agenda then.
Okay.
Sweet. Is that must be low? Or songbird?
I did text Rob.
Yeah, I called him afterwards, and he says, well, there's, I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, for Friday.
Oh,
Okay. I forgot to include him in my email.
oh,
I forget about him.
okay. it
Okay,
should
we
be
are
live.
live.
Okay.
5:30.
Should we, we'll give it a few more minutes?
Did you hear back? Is anyone not coming? Have
I've
you
heard
heard?
back from you.
If I can, let me step over here.
Is the door locked?
Yes. Yes, should I go down?
I'll go take a look.
Do you want the key?
Ah, okay.
Somebody's texting us.
Okay.
If he sends us a message. Good thinking. Maybe there was a phone call.
She's gonna open it up.
Okay. See, look at this. That's Zach Taylor. I'm gonna have to come to the meeting. Where it is.
It says on the agenda.
Uh-oh.
Hello. Come on in.
Oh,
Oh, that's
okay, I
it.
see,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
he's here.
'cause I'm like, okay, I see the
Hello.
blue.
Sorry, I was looking at the doors.
Oh,
Sorry
no.
about that. Yeah. Oops.
Oh, my tip is already seat.
Yeah, that's rude.
That's sad.
Hello.
How y'all doing?
Good, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Starting in a few minutes here. Everybody can sign in.
No.
Okay, then we're fine. Dina.
Yeah.
Here's yours.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:33. We're gonna open this up for public comment. And why don't, before that, we just go around the room and introduce each other. We have some visitors here as well, residents. So.
Richard Deja, Third Ward Alderman.
Ruth Berwyn, City Administrator.
Dana Mall, Assistant Finance Director.
Jim Whitewood, Second Ward Alderman.
Ann Wilmore, First Ward resident and member of the Berwyn Tree Canopy Initiative.
Zach Taylor, Berwyn Tree Canopy Initiative.
Joe Carmichael, 8th Ward Alderman. Sundays Finance Director.
And Scott Lennon, First Ward Alderman. So we open it up for public comments.
Perfect, thank you, that's what we're here for. You want me to read the first part, or?
Just wherever you want me to pick up, I will.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds in my phone.
Hi, everybody. Our names are Ann Wilmore and Zach Taylor. We are here representing the Berwyn Tree Canopy Initiative. Today our group has 2 requests to make to the City Budget and Finance Committee to increase the allocation of funds to be used for tree care and planting, and to support reinstating the city's tree board. The Berwyn Urban Forest Summary by the Chicago Region Trees Initiative said that Berwyn currently has a tree canopy covering 21% of our city, but that 34% of the land cover here in Berwyn could be converted to tree canopy. The city of Berwyn has allotted $116,100 through the Capital Improvement Plan and General Fund to the forestry program. And on my attachment, that's that second page, it shows that allotment. Our group thinks that this is a great start. However, we would point out that it's only about 2% of the Public Works' almost $5 million budget. The capital plan boasts that the community benefit received from these funds is, quote, planting new parkway trees and removing damaged trees will enhance curb appeal within the city, as well as helping to manage stormwater, improving air quality, and providing other environmental benefits. We certainly agree with these benefits. According to the 2020 and 2021 Berwyn Treasurer's Report and Accounts Payable Records, actual expenditures were $202,000 in 20 and $412,000 in 2021, with about 12% of those expenditures going towards tree planting. And this percentage is less than 1% of the overall Public Works budget.
We have 2 asks to make today. And ask number 1 is, today we're asking that you increase the tree care and planting line item in the general fund draft budget to $250,000. This increase in funding should be directed towards a proactive planting program on Berwyn's public property and parkways to replace the trees lost to removal, including the emerald ash borer. Proactively planting a diverse population of trees along residential and commercial properties should be a top budget priority. For instance, the Walgreens on Ogden Avenue has public parkways along its property that appear suitable for trees. Many similar examples can be pointed out. Places like these should be assessed for suitability for public trees and where appropriate trees should be installed. The forestry department should be reaching out to homeowners and offering to install trees in their parkways, not merely waiting for residents to request trees. Our second ask. Previously, we have asked the City Council to support compliance with the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree City program and the City of Berwyn's own tree board ordinance. It's Chapter 284, Section 1, by maintaining a tree board. This board would be involved in city forestry oversight and decision-making, including helping ensure that the city's financial and budgetary commitments are satisfied. A mechanism for community participation in city government, such as a citizen commission or tree board, allows for community participation and support on issues related to the environment, climate resiliency, and the urban forest. The tree board would review tree care and tree removal proposals, champion the Berwyn Urban Forest Program, work with city staff members on community outreach, co-evaluate the tree inventory with city staff, and contribute input to the annual planting program. Does the city have plans for restarting the tree board? What is the timeline and mechanism for restarting the tree board? And how can residents participate in the tree board? That's our message today, and thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. I know this has been presented to the Public Works Committee as well, and City Council, I believe.
Not this particular letter with
Okay.
these specific asks, but
Okay.
in general, the tree board comment, ask number 2 has been presented. Ask number 1, just like a quick summary, is, we're allocating about $30,000 a year for planting, but $200,000 for removal. So we're trying to lift that planting number up considerably here, asking for an overall increase of about $20,000 for 2022, which would bring it up to about $50,000 for planting. And the Public Works Director said it's about $500 to plant a tree here. So that could increase our canopy pretty significantly in the course of the year. And I know they're doing really specific Arbor Day planning and all that, but it would be really good from our perspective to start getting trees in the ground, so.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
We've had discussions too, I think, in the last several meetings with Director Schiller concerning a budget for trees as we try to push and try to get more trees planted in residential properties. What's our budget today and where do we need to go in the future? Because if we're planting 100 trees, say a year, 150 trees a year, if we really elevate this program more, we need to make sure we have that budgetary numbers in there as well. So if we do 500 a year, if there's a want for that or a need, how much is that going to cost? What's the cost in the budget? So we've had those discussions with them, and then we'll continue to have those as well.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, when you're planting these 2-inch DBH trees, you're not gonna be experiencing maintenance costs for the first 5, 10, 15 years. So, unless there's some kind of disease, you're not gonna see that in the near term, the costs.
Sure. Okay. No, this is good stuff. So we'll forward this on to, this new one to Director Schiller, and then we'll have it in our meeting as well.
That's great. So does anybody have any understanding of the tree board and any mechanism to get it reinstated? I mean, it seems like the tree board hasn't existed here in Berwyn for like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 years.
Sure. I know about it, but that's something we can, direct back to the Public Works Committee to get them to engage in this and then see if we can bring that board back to fruition.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the tree board, but we talked before about this, and I'm new here, but Public Works did say to me, if you see areas without trees, talk to those people. So we made flyers and I was handing them out. We got a lot planted this year. I know it was not a tree board, but it was, at least there was something going on.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a great proactive step, and our organization is planning to do that, but we don't want to flood the neighborhoods with, here's these flyers, and then not have the budget to back it later on,
Right.
so.
And that's my fear too, if we get, 1,000 trees, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So that's why we might have to look at a holistic approach to, look at everything. And then as well, we talked about educating our residents that trees aren't bad, because we try, I know, many of us do try knocking on doors, and when a tree is cut down, is to go back and say, we can put you on the list for a tree in 2 years, once that stump's gone. So, or walking the streets and somebody doesn't have a tree, we have conversations with them, we ask if they want a tree, and it's a lot of times it's like, so I think education is key, it does,
Absolutely.
you do have to get your sewers rotted out every so many years and so on and so forth, but those are things that are good. It might be a little of expense, but then you're gonna have a tree. So I think we can all work together on kind of next steps, and then we'll get this to the proper channels and see what we can do.
Yeah, we're really interested in these commercial properties that have public parkway that they maintain, but they don't have the benefits of the trees. So there's like this new construction that's happened,
Mhm.
but they haven't come behind and installed trees with it. So it's like, we've lost it because of that new construction, which is
Sure.
a shame, so.
So we'll do that, like in the depot area with all the construction there's gonna be 250 trees being planted all throughout that corridor.
Great.
Most of those trees, in some cases through the years, from my knowledge, is some of the wrong trees were planted. So therefore, they're brittle, they break, or they get too high, and then they, maybe they're in front of the business, and the business, you can't see the business, and so on. So I know this time in the depot, it's gonna be done right, but we can look at other areas like Ogden Avenue and things like that as well. And some of it might be, maybe IDOT won't let you plant trees in certain areas if it's
Yeah.
close to a light and things like that. But those are all perimeters in the long run that we can work together on to try to figure out, like I say, a holistic approach that pushes more green, more infrastructure with trees and things.
Yep, and the trees in the depot, when they were put in, they're gonna be having the silva cells, so that way it will definitely help the growth and the health of those trees, because that wasn't around last time when we did the Roosevelt Road, that technology really wasn't there. That was
Sure.
our last large streetscape project, so it's being incorporated in this one along with lots of other green infrastructure projects.
And on the busy
That's
streets
really
like
cool.
Ogden and Roosevelt and things like that, they really get damaged from salt and just, 35,000 cars going through that corridor, a day. So, we might have to look at things like that, so,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely some hardy variety, so.
yeah. Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else in open comments? Okay, let's go to the next item, which is our 2022 update general fund budget draft. We did pass our levy earlier, and that's kind of the process. We did that in December, think?
Yep, thanks.
Back in December?
Yes.
December. And now, basically, what we waited on is for our bills and invoices and things to come in so that we can kind of finalize and put together another draft. That is, then the next step will be a final budget. So, Ben, you want to start the process out here?
Thank you, Alderman Lennon, and indeed, since we've last met back in November, there were further transactions that we have captured into our system, as well as having the understanding of what the property tax levy will be as a result of the passage on the beginning of December. What I have in front of us in our packets, we not only have a general fund revenue and expense summary, but we've also included 3 other funds that in some cases have an interrelation with our general fund. And but of course, the first, and that includes the Berwyn Municipal Securitization Corporation. That's the fund that captures our state taxes. And of course, I'll point out the transfer of remaining monies to the general fund as a result of these state taxes. And then the other fund is a newly established fund, the ARP, or the American Rescue Plan, as a result of the recent funding through that program as a response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And then finally, our capital projects fund, which will illustrate capital expenditures, primarily with our capital expenditures from our Public Works, Fire Department, Police Department, Public Works, and Recreation Department capital expenditures. So,
Okay.
the first thing I'm going to articulate, explain, is of course what have we seen as far as results go since November. Just from what we mentioned in November, these state taxes have come in strong beyond our expectations, and those higher state taxes have really allowed us. The general fund has encountered better than expected results, and in addition, and this is in the detail of the general and expense fund. It's like a 19-page document, but you'll see the revenues and the expenditures in detail. But in sum, the state taxes and other revenues like the paramedic ambulance billing has been able to offset lower than expected revenues. I would say primarily in 2 areas. Our property taxes, actually, even though we levied a certain amount for 2021, they came in lower than expected. And normally, if you look at the page 2, just want to, we budgeted $19.6 million right at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are expecting to bring in a little lower than 19.2. That's like a 98%.
Okay.
Now, in some years, we end up collecting more than, it just depends on if people are protesting their taxes, their ability to recover the full level, or people are delinquent on their taxes, so.
So when people are delinquent in their taxes, does it come back to us once they catch up?
Correct.
It does, but it might be in another year?
Correct.
So, Okay.
Yes. So that's what, you know, we had lower expected. Also our fines, because, you know, especially earlier in the year, you know, the enforcement of some of our parking fines and things of that nature, we didn't enforce as much, you know, just being sensitive to people with the pandemic. So that came in lower than expected. The other thing that was offset, that the better than expected results help offset is, you know, our police department had overtime higher than, you know, especially over the last couple of years, and than normally experienced in 2019 and in prior years before that. And, you know, talking to our police commanders, they had illustrated their police force was down staff-wise 10%. Especially, you know, given the people that are succumbed to COVID and the stress on the department to fill in for that. That resulted in our overtime, as well as, you know, there's a buyback line item that just reflects their benefit time, that you had our police department staff that could not take all their time allotted to, because they had to fill in for the people that had succumbed to COVID. You know, and then of course you also had retirees of our supervisory staff that, you know, that period of time where you're turning things over to replace the supervisory staff, it just, those items were higher than what we normally have experienced, so.
And we're not to full staffing, correct?
Correct. They're still in the process of hiring probationary.
So that's
officers.
probably one of the main reasons of all the overtime also, is
Yeah.
just because everyone's trying to fill in for all the openings.
Yes.
Just to put in the time to make sure our streets are covered.
Yep.
And it's hard, right now, we're having a hard time finding police officers, so, and that's, if you're down 2 or 3 or whatever, it's gonna impact the overtime as well.
Yeah. And so, you know, as a conservative measure, we're gonna keep the overtime and buyback benefit time at the same level, similar levels as projected for the remainder of the year, so just to be conservative there. But even with that, you know, we are foreseeing, you know, a modest surplus in 2021. Now, I caution everybody that we still have to complete our audit. There's transactions that still need to be captured that are not yet available from our state, Illinois Department of Revenue, as well as the county. But we still have a month's worth of revenues to come in. So, but even with that being said, I mean, right now we're at, if it stands, we could have, you know, about a $200,000 surplus for the general fund for 2021. And then we will not know for sure what that final number, it could change either way until sometime around May, when the audit is completed. Now, the thing to consider is that if that number stands, is whether or not to transfer that for capital expenditures. You know, as we mentioned with Public Works, you'll see on the very last page, you know, there's expenditures, you know, in Public Works that had to be scaled back as a result. There's limited funds in our capital expenditures. And of course, just to be mindful that that number stands, you know, it's worth considering whether that money can be applied to those capital expenditures.
And I've had those conversations with Bob Schiller as well, because there are projects that sometimes we throw to the curb because we don't have the money, but if there is, you know, extra in budgets and stuff like that, that it can be added to, you know, if it's an extra street or 2 or 3 to get resurfaced or what have you.
Correct.
So Ben,
Yes.
just, I'm curious, so, I know we kicked around ideas for the levy, so are we doing, or maybe doing better, because of the levy that we chose, the one we went with?
The levy that we chose in December will not be reflected to the following year.
Oh.
Yeah, we do the levy in advance of the following year.
Oh.
Last year, we didn't impose an increase except for the bond covenant. And, you know, otherwise, from the general standpoint, it was the same as the previous year. Well, what's happened is that, yes, it's come in so far less than expected as a result. So, but that's what's happened there, okay? But, you know, on the next packet, and like I said, if there's any questions as far as looking at the detail, I know we've gone through, you know, with the departments, line by line, and as far as the expectation goes, to generate these projections. But of course, the second packet is the Berwyn municipal securitization. Thing I just wanted to point out, we had our securitization board meeting last month, and of course, where we, you know, the projections were approved as far as the 2022 budget goals. In sum, again, we budgeted, you know, $18 million for state taxes, and we're close to $2.7 million higher than expected in that regard. But again, once you take out the required interest state payment, and of course the escrow agent fees, again, the remaining monies are going back to the general fund as a result. So that's the Berwyn securitization fund. And then the third packet, just what we've done is, this is our budget for the American Rescue Plan. And the source document, this is all predicated on the expenditure plan that City Administrator Ciava Green had submitted to City Council and have gone over where the areas of the expenditures have been. I mean, we're directed toward. The thing to bear in mind, what we're doing here is, you know, half of that allocation that the city has been awarded to, you know, it's close to $32 million. We received half of that in 2021.
The other half.
So this allowed us to make some capital expenditures that are inconsistent with the guidance of that grant. For now, we are just mapping out all the expenditures, you know, dictated by that plan. But it's not realistic that all those expenditures are gonna take place this coming year. It could stretch out. I believe the guidance dictates that we have to have the
Everything spent by December 31st, 2026.
Okay.
We have to have it obligated by the end of 2024, but then we still have a couple of years.
Okay.
So a lot of the projects are larger projects, so they do take longer, especially when it has to deal with infrastructure like the water main replacements. So as you know, right now, we have quite a few projects going on in the city right now, so engineering's been stretched, but they've already started looking at the process for moving forward with some of the larger infrastructure projects that we had, including the water main replacements that we have going for both Ogden and I believe Cermak.
And what will happen is that, yes, whatever has not been expended, that'll become fund balance to be carried over in those remaining 2 to 3 years.
So with this, we know we're getting more money this year. So we've got some last year,
It
this
should
year.
be by, I think by the end of April, it's supposed to be in.
May.
Is there any more funding or money available through the federal government or Cook County government or anything that could come our way or possibly come our way?
There's been conversations, nothing concrete has been passed, I don't believe in Congress,
Yeah, there was the federal infrastructure
Mhm.
grant that was
Yep.
passed. We received information on it. Applications are being accepted for
Okay.
some of that. I've already passed it on to engineering to public works so that they can see, they can put in applications for some of those. I believe a lot of that money is also going towards the state, in which the city will have to apply to the state for those.
Good.
I know there's some money that's gonna be going towards the state mandate that was put in last year regarding replacing all the lead water lines that belong to the residential homes and commercial areas. I doubt there's gonna be enough monies to actually cover maybe a small percentage. So we're gonna have to look in the future how to cover the rest, because I really don't know how many more grants that will be there. I'm sure
Exactly.
everyone knows here, most of our homes are rather old.
Yeah.
And the majority, probably 90%, still have lead lines. So that'll be a question for how to move forward, but yes, there are some grants, we are applying towards them.
Okay, good.
You know, when I was saying, is the build back better,
That's the infrastructure one.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, but, you know, on the last page, we mentioned with the capital fund, again, all three departments are making an operating contribution, toward that fund
Good.
and accumulating that. It's just, and we project in 2022 that the fund will break even as a result, but, you know, it's just be mindful of the 2023 to 2025, that, you know, these projects are out there that, we wanna, especially as we're meeting toward 2023's budget as far as the capital expectations and funding sources for those, those expenditures outside what's already funded.
Mhm.
And, we were looking at updating our capital plan. We put that on hold because CMAP came to us before. They weren't gonna help us with the actual creation of it, but they've since extended a grant, so they will have someone help us do it.
Okay.
So they said they wanted to start working with us in February. I'm waiting to hear back from them. So just so you know, that project is not on, you know,
Okay,
it's
Yeah.
gonna happen, and it's gonna happen soon. So, I'm just waiting to hear back from CMAP on when their personnel are ready to start working with us with the new grants that they're giving us for that.
okay, good.
And that's all I.
Any questions from anybody, either on the committee or Alderman Boywood? No? So if you do have questions in the next couple of weeks or so, please reach out to Ben. We really want to get this budget passed through council. Any questions you may have, that maybe you don't understand anything or something, just ask. And you know, either Ben can help you or some of the department heads can help as well.
And first, our newer aldermen, what's gonna happen from this point, you will provide the approval for me to go forward with these budgets to incorporate with our citywide smaller funds, our principal debt and principal bond and interest. We have to merge all that together so that, the next council session, you'll have a complete citywide budget packet to review and consider. And then, the first council session in March will be when we'll have a public hearing, and then that'll fall upon a vote to pass the budget or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All righty. Any new business? I mean, I think one thing I'd like to add is 2 years ago, we did receive a grant, I believe, that Public Works did receive, and had somebody do an audit of our roads and rated them on, you know, red, yellow, green, basically. And I'd like to start working on that again with, through this committee in Public Works, to put a plan on that we can really look at our roads and the condition and how much money we need to put in the budget moving forward to get to that plan of resurfacing our roads. If we have roads that are 20 years old, they're past the shelf life, and we do some patch because, you know, we're not allocating enough money into the budget for this. But I think as we move forward, we need to really look at that to make sure we have a long-term plan that we can, not just patch, shall we say. And we are getting grants, you know, from state and county and federal government, but we need to look elsewhere as well.
And we're gonna incorporate that into the capital plan also, and then the capital plan's gonna be updated on a yearly basis. So before we even start that process for the whole budget season, Ben's gonna be working with engineering as they have that street list updated every year also, so.
Sure.
And do you know if we're getting any more grants for the alleys,
We apply every year, so we apply every year. I think we might receive a few this year, I'm not sure. We'd have to check with Public Works on that, but we do apply every year through MWRD. So, you know, I'm sure it'd be great if we got so many a year, but we have 655 alleys. But,
And that's a matching grant
Yeah.
also.
Oh, so it's not.
No.
But one of the things about our engineering team, they're always looking for grants. BDC's always looking for grants. Fire, police are looking for grants, so we're always applying. And, you know, it's just one of those things, when you apply, that's when you have to make some calls and try to, solicit approval and get our name out there so we can get that either federal money or state money or county money.
And how many alleys did you say?
655, and they've changed the way they're doing them. Last time I talked about Schiller, it was approximately $300,000 apiece. So if you do the math, it's quite a bit. So, and the biggest problem with our alleys is our alleys are old and they're bowed this way, and they're not green. And a lot of alleys cannot be green because of the soil content. It might be clay, so they can't do a green alley because it's not gonna drain. So there's a lot more to just saying we need a new alley. You want drainage, you don't want just water to just, go into people's property and stuff like that. So there is more of a holistic view of how we need to do it moving forward through MWRD and so on. But, our streets are the main focus now because our streets are need some attention. And, I'm not saying we're not looking at alleys, but Public Works, I believe, also has kind of a grading system of alleys, really bad, and better ones, so go from there. Okay, if we have no other questions, or, I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, I adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Well, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, so call Ben if you have any questions, or you can call me too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I just texted Jim that we're done.
Cool.
Did you guys have the tree stuff? That was-
Yeah, and I'll forward that too. I'll forward that too.
Because that